Hello and welcome back or welcome to Into the Nothing with your favorite host, Patrice Douglas. And on this episode, I have one of my best friends, Jess Mcilveen. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's your second time.
It is.
We did an episode, I don't know when we did it, probably about a year ago.
At least
Oh,
a year ago.
More.
I reckon
Maybe
it
a
was
year and a
more.
And that's actually episode 18, everybody. And it's I've actually got it in front of me. It's called Parent-Child Relationships. And I would highly recommend if you are becoming a parent or if you have kids, I would highly recommend checking out that episode. I got so much out of it. I don't have kids, but I got so much out of it for myself. But I know if anyone has kids, it's just a cracking episode. You just are a wealth of knowledge. And what's so cool, Jess, to tell our beautiful listeners is that you're actually having your first child. You're pregnant.
Gosh, when you say it, seriously, that's so weird. But yes, I am. Oh my gosh, seriously, all these tears just came to my eyes when you said that because it seems still so foreign. It's like, I'm 15 and a half weeks now, and I'm like, where is this baby? Because there's not a massive bump. And I'm like, so it still seems really, it seems foreign and surreal. But yes, in December, late December, for better or worse, Christmas baby, New Year's baby, who knows? But I'll be having my little bambino at the end of the year.
Do you know what you're having?
No.
No, and you're not going to find out.
No, we're going to wait. We're going to wait.
Let that be a surprise. Beautiful. And, it's been a big year of, life-changing events for you because you also got married to Chaz, who I was lucky enough to go to the wedding on the Sunshine Coast. So bam, bam, you are just adulting hardcore right now.
I know. And I think if I was young, like in my 20s, it would be a bit, bam, bam, too much bam, bam. But I think, at 35, after, I just think when you know what you want, it's just, it's easy peasy. And it was a shock, but it was meant to be for sure. We're very excited now. Super, super excited after all the shock.
And how are you feeling? How's the pregnancy feeling in your body?
I am the luckiest and most grateful pregnant woman on the planet because I have felt incredible. Like I felt amazing. I felt healthy, happy. Yes, there were nights where Chaz would just look at me and I'd start crying and he would be like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What, are you okay? Are you okay? So yes, the tears would flow sometimes. But overall, God, I felt good. No morning sickness, no nausea. I think there was one afternoon where I needed to lie down because I felt a little bit queasy. But I'm so grateful. I just feel really good. And I think that's helping me really trust even my, journey and what type of birth that I'm aiming for as well. It's really allowing me to trust my body so much more and just have so much faith and trust that I can do it. I can do it all naturally, beautifully, the way that I wanted to do it. And my body is ready. Like it's so healthy and loving this journey. So I feel really good about it. I feel great.
And what's your feels and mindset around, because I you have been an expert within family units. You were a social worker and then you also ran yoga for kids. And then you've moved into now you're the founder of the Happy Home movement, Happy Home Project. Helping families become harmonious and between the parent-child relationship and probably more to do with parents finding harmony within themselves in some way, shape or form.
Yeah.
And so it's been so fascinating to, be a friend of yours and watch your career over the last few years helping families but not having kids. And so how are you feeling? What's your mindset around having a child now when you've been working with families and their kids for so many years?
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons to it. So initially, the first few weeks after I found out, it was absolute panic mode. And I was quite neurotic because when you spend your days in your world is focused on hearing the torment and the overwhelm and the struggles and challenges that parents are facing, when that's your constant, then that they become your fears, right? So all of those fears tumbled on in, and I was terrified that I would be the worst mum on the planet, terrified that I would have a child that I would not be able to care for and love in the way that they need, terrified about having a child that would be really unhappy within themselves and display all these big behaviors. And, I know that I can see it very clearly for others, but when we shine the light on ourselves, it's very, very different. When we look in the mirror, it's a different experience. My emotions are involved now, they're invested. And that's often why people come to me, because they need an outside source and objectivity, because their emotions are so caught up in this little being that they love more than anything. So terror was there. But I think now that I got over that terror and started talking about it a lot, it's absolute calm, and it's absolute calm. I just feel really calm, and I feel really, there's no other word actually. It's calm. And I feel like all of the work that I've done over the last 12 years for myself, because I know that in me working with parents, it was actually me working with me. And I really unconsciously, completely unconsciously set out on a mission to work with parents, so that I knew if I could help them have a happy home from a chaotic home, then I could create it for myself. And so that I could trust having children one day, because I spent many years never wanting children. I was terrified. So now the calm has come over me, and I have a lot of trust in all of the work that I've done, the personal work, that the healing that I've done over my own childhood, and the triggers and the challenges that will pop up for me. I know some of them, and there's probably a lot I don't know. But I think that the biggest themes that come through with parents, I'm expecting them to happen, and that gives me then more confidence, because they're scary when it happens. It's scary to feel like you're a failure as a mum. It's scary to feel like you don't know what you're doing and you're making mistakes everywhere, and the guilt you feel. And, they're all really scary feelings, but I know they're coming. And so I feel like I'm really prepped, and I have the greatest teammate that I could possibly even dream of, in Chaz. So I feel really calm and confident. That's now how I feel.
Wow, that's so special. Like to realize the 12 years of helping so many others was truly a coming home to yourself. The happy home movement is within. And you said in that when you were feeling the terror and thinking all the stories of terror, and I'm going to be the worst mom, and sure, thoughts that everyone has, every mum has. And you said that you've been talking about it, so I think you're alluding to that it's released a bit by talking about it. Who have you spoken to about it? Is it just do you feel comfortable in conversation to just genuinely share that with friends? Is it with Chaz? Is it with your mum? Is it with a therapist? Like, where's your outlet?
Yeah. So initially it was with Chaz. And he can only relate to it so much, right? Because it's not his experience as such like it is mine. So but as soon as I started opening up to my sister and a good friend of mine who has had kids, and my mum, and obviously reflecting on a lot of the stuff that parents tell me on a day-to-day basis, it's the same thing. And then I go back to what I know. And what I know is that there is no unique thought. So if I have these thoughts, I know that other women, mums to be, they have these thoughts too. So it was bit by bit just releasing it. And then friends that I would catch up with and tell them that I was pregnant, even if they didn't have kids. And I'm sure I think I told you at some point that I was pretty neurotic and scared. So I just bit by bit, I released it, because I think one of the themes that I see working with mums is that they start keeping everything to themselves. They don't share anything for fear of judgment and that they're the only ones feeling this. And they're just so not. And I actually refuse to play that game. I refuse to stay in that lane of hiding things. I want to be an open book, because if I'm feeling it, I know others are feeling it. So I actually just want to share. I just want to share it because it benefits me, and then it benefits somebody else in case they've felt it too. And then the weight gets lifted off their shoulders too. So yeah, it was, bit by bit with everybody that I told. And especially my sister, you know, she's my lifesaver all of the time. She's my greatest support. She is the greatest love of my life. And she just has so much. She has 4 boys, so she has so much wisdom already, and she's experienced everything, you know, most things that you can go through. So when she normalizes it, you know, makes you feel like you're not alone. It's okay. I felt that too. It's all right. Doesn't make you bad. Doesn't make you weird. Doesn't make you horrible. Then it just all slips away.
The normalizing it. And
yeah.
And she is a special woman. I've met your sister, and she is bold and brave, and having so mmany boys, she knows what she's doing. And I feel like this concept of into the nothing, whatever it is, it's so multifaceted. It's just a fun idea, but into the nothing, giving birth and transitioning from focusing on your career to becoming a mom and focusing on nourishing yourself and obviously nourishing the baby, and those two go hand in hand, is truly a phase of into the nothing. Retirement, you know, like these chapters in life that we move through of touching into the nothing. But another aspect of into the nothing that I wanted to talk to you about, that was actually the catalyst for me reaching out, was that you just completed 10 days of Vipassana, which is 10 days of silence and being with truly the nothing, which is the internal world of emotions and thoughts. And I'll get you to explain what Vipassana is for anyone who doesn't know what that is. But you did it at the beginning of last year, was it? Or the year before?
I think it's, the year before
Years
now.
ago.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to you after you did that Vipassana, oh my gosh, you've got to come on into the nothing, because that's such a great example of into the nothing, of fully releasing all attachment to so much of the physical world, distractions, phone, relationships, you know, the doing of day-to-day life, and fully going into the nothing of emotions and thoughts, the internal world. And I remember speaking to you after that, and you were so committed to the practice. And I remember you said, you came over to my house and you were talking me through what Vipassana was and the practice of the scanning of the body. And, you know, and you spoke through it, and I thought it was so fascinating. And then I said, do you think you'll keep the practice? Like 100%. And I know you didn't.
I
know. But it's so, you know, it doesn't matter. But I was just like, it's so, you know, life.
Yeah.
First and foremost, Jess, can you talk us through, in the most basic explanation that you can, what Vipassana is?
Yeah. So in its most simple terms that doesn't give it any justice, it's a meditation technique. So the idea is that you spend 10 days in silence. You've got people around you, but you're not to make eye contact or talk to them. So you're in complete silence, and you are to focus on, really is to break the thought pattern of your mind. So the premise of Vipassana, the belief system behind it, which is what it stems from Buddha, and there's a lot of misconceptions about what Buddha did and didn't do in Buddhism. It's actually not even related. But the only thing that Buddha taught was Vipassana, and what he found was that there were 2 things that humans were constantly trying to do, and that was avert things. So they would be trying to avoid things, or they would be craving things. They're the 2 zones of brain traffic that we have. And depending on which lane that we're in, both lanes will give us bodily sensations at a very unconscious level. They're always there, always, and they just build and build and build depending on how much power we give to our thoughts. So they'll build and build, and then basically with these bodily sensations, it will lead to the behaviors in how we live our life and how we react to things. So that is what we are to get in touch with very, very, very clearly, is what are these bodily sensations, whether they're pleasant or unpleasant. It doesn't matter in Vipassana. That's not the aim of the game. The aim of the game is to actually be equanimous with all sensations, even if they're painful, even if it's a nice little buzzing of energy and it feels good and you think that you are a superstar meditator and that you've, nearly reached enlightenment because you can feel your body buzzing with energy. It doesn't matter. So the idea is that we're breaking that mind pattern of going off into story, right? Going off into story. What did that person do to me? How should I have responded? What am I going to do to them in a month? How can I get back at them? What did my partner say? What does this mean? What if they leave me? What if my job or my boss doesn't do that? Like all of these stories, right? It's all coming from this aversion and craving of something. And it's just becoming so aware of the bodily sensations and releasing it. And he calls it like a deep operation that we're doing in our mind. It's a deep operation. So you do 3 days of anapana, so focusing on your breath just above the lip. So 3 days, and we're meditating 10.5 hours a day. So focusing on your lip. And then the 4th day is when he starts bringing in the bodily scan, and it's done in a very specific way, and that's when shit really starts to get freaking cray. So that's the most nutshell explanation that I can give.
And what are you eating?
We're eating vegetarian plant-based meals, and so you have breakfast and lunch. And then you just have fruit for dinner if it's your first time. But if it's your second time, then you just have lemon and ginger water for dinner. So it's really, giving your body nutrients and also detoxing it at the same time, because we're also detoxing our mind as well. And everything is impacting our body, including the food that we eat too. So it's about working with the entire system of our mind and our body through these 10 days.
And before, when you said we're on the 4th day, when you started the practice of body scanning, shit started to get cray, what does that mean?
So there's usually, day 2 and day 3 is really hard, and day 5 is when it's like really tormentingly hard. And it's because you start entering your body, right? So in the beginning, when you're focusing on just your breath, you just become really aware of how distracted your mind gets. And I know there's so many people listening that will go, yeah, that's why I don't meditate, or yeah, that's why I'm a bad meditator. And it's not that that's what that's not what it means. It's so you get really aware of how distracted your mind is, and you get really aware of what your mind focuses on, and then you become frustrated with yourself, and then you start to traumatize your body, because remembering that your body doesn't know what's real or fake. Right? And you become so aware of the power of your thoughts in this process, because you'll go off into a story and then you'll realize how traumatized your body is. And that's how it is for me. This experience of the 10 days is like emotionally traumatic. That's how it feels. Don't worry, people, you get over it and you figure it out. I'll explain why. It's not a terrible process in the end. So then day 5 comes along, and then you start entering the body. And this is a place and a space that we often dissociate from. Like, this is the place and space where we're using Netflix to avoid. We're using that friend who we don't even like to go catch up for coffee just to use as a distraction. This is the place and space where we do not want to be, because in the first 3 days, we're fundamentally aware of how distracted our brain is, the stories, the good, the bad, the ugly, and they're all stories, right? None of them are based on fact. We're craving something, avoiding something, trying to prevent something, control something. So we're aware of that. And then when you start entering your body, you're starting to feel the remnants of all of that and what's being created over those first 4 days. And so it's terrifying, and it is uncomfortable, and it is shocking to us. Like, to me, it is shocking. And I want to run away. Like, I would run. I want to run away. I want to jump the fence and bugger off and not even deal with this. It's really challenging.
Is it because you're, sorry to interrupt, but
no, it's all right.
Is it because I might be getting like too logical in the mind about this, but are you feeling sensations that you like, well, that's a lot to feel, as in like, I don't know, like I've never created this much space to actually go in? Or are you feeling sensations in the body and there's really intense stories that you don't want to look at? Like both?
Yeah,
like
good question. Yeah, so for me, because everyone's experience is different. So sometimes the stories that get created, they manifest in physical pain for people.
Okay.
Whereas for me, it manifests in emotional pain. And what I mean by that is like the fight flight system is on steroids. So there's the sick feeling in the gut. There's the anxious heartbeat racing. I can feel the blood like going to my arms. I can feel my heartbeat pulsing through my arms because it's like activated. I can feel the feeling of anxiety, because anxiety is not a sensation, that's a feeling. I can feel all of that through my body, right? So mine's more of the emotional pain rather than the physical pain.
Were there sorry, interrupt again,
yeah.
But were there people in the room making loud sounds because they're in so much pain?
There's some that like they might do heavy breathing.
Okay.
Because there's so much to release, and people might start coughing a lot, or like the body will start to want to release or distract itself in different ways. And one of the ways is pain, because the body will be like, screw this shit, like move, get out, don't do this. Like, so it will give you reasons to escape, because it is uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable, like, to answer your question, it's uncomfortable because we don't give ourselves the space, because in reality, I don't know that we can give ourselves this much space as often as we need to. Let's be honest. We have people around us and lives to live. But how often do you actually feel that discomfort and sit there? And that's it. And I mean hours and hours and hours and hours and hours for days on end. Not many people do this unless you're a monk, right? I mean hours of uninterrupted meditation, sitting in that discomfort without flocking to the phone or flocking to Netflix or flocking to your partner or flocking to something. So it's uncomfortable because we're sitting there and we have nowhere to escape to. Like, we don't take our phones. You're not allowed to read anything. You're not allowed to write anything. There's just zero escape. And we're not used to that. I'm not used to that. I'm used to having the escape. I'm used to having the trusted source of dissociation for me, like going to my partner, getting that comfort cuddle and having his words then become mine. No, like in this process, you are the only one you can rely on. And that's a really scary thought when you're in the midst of feeling just so traumatized, because your body is feeding back to you terror. Like, it's feeding back to you, I'm not safe. It's feeding back to you with all that anxiety pulsing through my body. It's feeding back to you that, like, you're in danger. This is horrible. Like, that's a horrible thought. So the thoughts come in, and it's interesting then, because then you know what fears are running your life. That's what becomes really, really clear in this process. And it's been interesting for me to have two experiences, because they're different. They were different fears and different levels. So the first one, the fears were, Chaz having an affair and cheating on me, and when I came home, he would leave me, right? It was all around being left and then being alone and being unloved, right? Not worthy. And this time around, that came up for sure, but there was a lot more death, right? So the grief and loss and the fear was more extreme, maybe because I extended my threshold on what I could experience through that first 10 days. So because that's what this process does, it extends out what you can handle in your everyday life, because you're releasing those sensations and you're basically befriending them. Like you're becoming really equanimous with the anxiety sensation versus the good sensation. They then become the same. Like you don't have judgment around it. Goenka, who is the teacher, he's dead now, but he created all of these 200 meditation centers around the world. He says every sensation arises to pass away. And yet what the human mind does without us even knowing it is that we cling to the sensation. We can't release it or be equanimous with it because it is so scary, or it does feel so nice. And then we want to do everything to get that sensation back, get the high back, get the good feeling back at all costs. So we're being run by these sensations, whether we're aware of it or not. And we have biases towards them, right? Towards the good versus the unpleasant. And so Vipassana lets you see all of that unfiltered, what your fears are, what's running the show in your life, and why things might not be working as good as you were hoping for, because these are all underlying. They're there, whether we're aware of it or not.
It's that connection to, it sounds like that connection to the unwavering presence of the truth of who we are, and being able to witness all of the sensations that are coming in and out, and be behind like what is the thing behind it all that you can start to have a relationship with. So I haven't done Vipassana, but what I've learned from being with one of my mentors, Rebecca Thompson, is being able to be in life and be in the emotion, but also build a relationship with that unwavering peaceful presence behind that's actually just always there. So when I'm feeling really anxious or feeling insecure, or just lots of doubt or scared or crying heaps or just feel overwhelmed, start to have a connection with, that's not who I am. I can be in it without having, like, thinking that that's what's going to consume me and drown me. I've built a connection through meditation with an unwavering peaceful presence that's behind that, so you can actually be connected to that but still be in whatever the emotion is, so it can pass. This it sounds like a connection with, what am I really, what's behind this, like what's behind, because it's like, I'm not the emotion, because they come and go. There's something else.
Yeah. And that's, I think when you say those things, like for me, even until I did the first Vipassana, it was still a really logical concept, and just like this outside of myself concept to, you're not your emotions, or be with the emotion, sit with it. And I was like, well, what the fuck does that even look like or mean? Like, what do I think about? I think for many, and I hear it even from my clients, it's like, well, give me the rule, give me the instructions. Like, that's the steps on how to do that. And it wasn't until I, sat for the first 10 days that I actually understood what it means to sit with the emotion, and that's it, because there is no escape. And that was when I truly felt like I was embodying what it meant to be okay with whatever emotion comes up. That was the first time. And I'm like over 30 and I teach this stuff too. So I think, that's one of the things that becomes really clear, is like the logical explanation versus the embodying of the practice and what it means. It's so different, I think, because our logical mind is not going to save us, fix us, do us justice. Like, it's just not even in that space that we get to feel free, I think. It's just not there.
Yeah, I'm loving Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations. And he always says it's not enough to know how.
Yeah.
It's not enough to know how. You have to have the experience of it, and that requires the discipline of doing the meditation, of the days when it's so fucking hard. I could be so in my head, I'm restless. They happen less and less now. I'm more at peace with it. For a long time, I'd sit there some days, and my mind, I must just total avoidance, right? Just don't want to sit there. And some days I'd stop the meditation halfway through and I'd just sit there and actually go on social media for 5 minutes. Like in the early days, I was just so uncomfortable with sitting with myself.
Sure.
But then I just, I could be half an hour just scrolling in full distraction. But I was like, okay, I'm just going to go back and finish it. So that's not an ideal, in my mind meditation, but I still did it. They still matter. Like the discipline of doing it.
Yep.
The discipline creates the ease in the rest of our lives. And we saw Marianne Williamson together.
We did. Yeah.
In Brisbane. And I just remember her saying along the lines of, like, we live in a world where it's doing some sort of practice to get in contact with yourself, whatever that is, whatever type of meditation it is, whatever it is for you, it's non-negotiable every day. Like she was saying how, I think she's in her 70s or something, and she's like deeply spiritual, like Course of Miracles run through her blood, that's all of her brain is connected to that and lived it for many years. And she was like, it's like going to the gym. It's like you don't go once and then you're fit. You got to show up every day for yourself and for this world that we're in. Like it's a non-negotiable, which I'm in a place now where I'm like, it just makes my life so much fucking easier that I just life is becoming so dreamy internally that I'm just like, now, it's taken a long time for it for me to start seeing just like crazy magic happen, like just miracles. But for a long time of the grit and the discomfort of sitting down when I don't bloody want to, even 15 minutes is better than nothing. Discipline to do that practice and connect with what I call the nothing for me, it is changing my life. In like it now, it's just like everything's starting to come into harmony because you connect with the nothing, you go into that place, internal world, and everything else is just reflecting back that place.
Yeah. And I've even seen that in for you over the last few years too, and how committed that you've stayed with it, which has been like the most inspiring thing for me, because I think you're probably the only person that I've known that has truly been that committed soul to that practice and that wanting to connect with the nothing. And I think, you're reaping the benefits now, which has been so awesome to see as your friend, by the way. It's been like the most magical thing to witness. And I think that's what shines from you for sure. That magic and that calm and that inner trust is what shines a lot.
Thank you. I was at my girlfriend's daughter's second birthday yesterday, and I saw a few of our friends I hadn't seen in a while, and they were just like, whoa, you're like, I can feel your energy. I'm like, how are you? And I'm like, I feel lit. I feel so good. And it's been even recently really detaching from, it's really been focusing on how can I just be happy with nothing. I don't need my business to be good. I don't need a certain amount of money, which is still like a little bit like stuck, but I'm really focusing on how can I set myself up that I don't need Ted, my boyfriend, to be in I don't need him to be happy for me to be happy. I didn't realize how much his emotions, like if he'd be down or whatever, I'd be thinking, and I'd be going to that place too, or letting it affect me, and just really creating some sovereignty in how I'm feeling inside, regardless of what and who is showing up in my, like, truly, I just want to go to the deepest place of that. Wherever I am, I just feel lit. I don't need my business to be in a certain place. I don't need my friendships to be in a certain place. But the more that I do that, guess what? Everything else just becomes lit too. Because I'm not depending on, it's so tangible. This internal world creating your external reality is so fucking real.
Yeah. And I think it's the most terrifying thing to actually do, because I think surrendering to like nothing, right? Surrendering to that requires people who maybe are only just starting this journey, have never thought about a journey like that, it's releasing a whole lot of control aspects, right? It's releasing and the brain does go into chaos mode when you actually start requesting that of it. So that's why it does take so much time, and that's actually really okay. That's all right, because even from from my work, because I start from, birth, right? I start from that little mind, that impressionable mind and body, even in utero, really. And then, where the fear starts to show up and what the environment is teaching that little brain and that body. And then when they start to respond to their own sensations. And so we've got a lifetime of stuff to really just unpack and unlearn and like bugger off. So it's a terrifying thing to start releasing the control when you feel like the control is the only thing keeping you safe. That's a really bold move. It's a bold move, but it's a freeing one. Yeah. So that's why the time is needed. Time is needed.
Totally. It's it feels like such a it does feel like such a bold move, but it's like just understanding that everyone can be wherever they're at. I'm getting better and better at someone, just a simple example of a family member coming to me and going, if I'm flying from Sydney to Brisbane, for example, and close family member says to me, "You on the news, they're saying you got to get there hours before. There is chaos there. There are so many people, like people are missing their flights. Like you got it." Like when someone comes to me with so much fear, because I'm spending so much time with myself, maybe you can relate, Jess, or anyone who's listening. Maybe you'd like something like this. It's fucking fun. It's quite empowering to allow someone to be where they're at and not have that infiltrate my nervous system and my emotions and my thoughts and my stories. Then I'm like, oh my God, okay, I'll get up at 3 a.m. and I'll get there 4 hours before for a domestic flight. Like I'm like, whoa, I can't do that. I've been in burnout, so I the gift of burnout, I think, is like super sensitivity of like, whoa, I'm being pulled into like serious fear, and I'm just being able to go, yeah, cool,
yeah,
and then I just get up at a normal time and get a cab, and even my partner Ted was like, shit, like that Uber just cancelled on us. I'm like, it'll still be fine, and then we got there, and it was this full blown slipstream because I am the slipstream.
Oh yeah. Yeah, how good is that? That's so it's so exciting to have that
So
perspective.
fun.
So how nice is it to have that perspective, especially when you know the opposite, because you've been in the opposite spot, and because I know, even with Chaz, we have really different mindsets around, structure and routine and things. He's such a incredibly evolved being. And he's incredible. Love him. Love every aspect. But we still have different ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And so I'm much more, flowy. I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. It's, it's all going to be fine. Like nothing, it just doesn't freak me out. And whereas it might freak him out. And then, but it's funny in the end, even when we compare scenarios, it could be an airport scenario, like you said, or it could be, organizing the car mechanic, or it could it just doesn't even matter what it is. We've both achieved the same things with our own mindsets. Like we've both been just fine. So it's basically like, well, you can either have it the stressful way and the overwhelmed way, or you can have it the calm way. And I've realized this even like through planning the wedding this year, and then now just planning the baby stuff, right? There's two ways of doing things. You can get stuff done like really, really overwhelmed and stressed and need to control everything and prevent everything. Or, I mean, seriously, my body is so calm. It was so calm planning the wedding. I just did it in flow and ease. And I'm like, we're basically organized. And I don't even know how it's happened. It's just like we woke up one morning and we had everything that we needed. And we're both like, yeah, great.
Gosh, it reminds me, Jess, I actually saw this, and for our beautiful listeners, I saw this post on Instagram. I'm spending so much less time on social media, which is so wonderful, but I did see this post, which is cool. It said, the soul is intention, the ego is in tension, as in tension, TENSION, relax to attract.
Ooh, I love that.
The soul is intention, as in INTENTION. The ego is in
I love that
Relax
so
to
much.
attract. I would like
Wow.
that. As you said, I think that's a really cool perspective haven't really thought of. Like, you just have a choice. Like, do you want the path of organizing your wedding to be stressful as fuck? Do you want it to be torture, or what do you want it to be? Because it's all a process. And although it's probably still just a logical thought, it's not an embodied saying. I'm just going to own that around, life it's not the destination, it's the journey. It's the process. Like, we've got nowhere to be. Like, where are we going? We're going to die.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
we're all really scared of underneath everything. It's just, we're also scared of dying and going into
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
Which I actually crazy to say that, because yesterday because I'm staying at a friend's house at the moment in Byron to look after her dog, because she's going to her father's funeral in Sydney. And I actually had a thought yesterday. I did have a moment where I'm like happy. I'm like, I could die. Like, I'm like, I could die. It was like,
I have that thought too sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that underlying fear of death that's probably all running, like you were saying in Vipassana, like going under. What's, sometimes it's like when you see someone, or I might someone might spill a wine, knock a glass of wine over at my house, and I'm like, oh fucking hell, oh my god, it's in the carpet. It's got that moment of me reacting like that has nothing to do with that glass of wine.
No,
it has something
doesn't.
to do with probably something that's so unconscious that you unpick and unravel in your Vipassana.
Yeah, and I don't think it's possible without going deep like that. And I don't think it's possible to have any success in any field of your life without being aware of stuff like that. Because if it wasn't for Vipassana, if it wasn't for me being so aware of my sensations, my nervous system, my reactions, how my stories connect to my sensations, if I wasn't aware of that, I could not have a successful relationship. I tell you that flat out right now. I will not be, the calmest or the happiest mother that I really want to be, or have that happy home that I want and desire and that I know is possible. I just don't think it's possible. Like with Chaz and the fear of loss and losing him, and him cheating on me, and I mean he's just the object of the fear, right? So it's interesting, in Vipassana they just tell you whatever face you've given to an emotion or a scenario, they're just the face of it. They're just the manifested character of that fear. It's not them. And it's got nothing to do with them, because if I married somebody else, I would have the same fears. So it's not Chaz, it's not him. He's just the face of my fear of being alone or being unloved. That's all. And I remember I had all this anger last time too, and my auntie's face was showing up. I was like, she's just the face of anger for me, so that I can get it out, so that I've got this access point to it, and I have this vehicle of understanding it, and that's really powerful too. And so if I didn't know all of that, and if I didn't keep then coming back to, well, where does it come from within me? Why is it there? And how does it control my interactions with Chaz in my life? Because it does. And this is the whole reason actually that I decided to do Vipassana again for the second time, not only because I was pregnant, but I could start to feel that lack of control over those fears and how it was manifesting in my life. And I thought, okay, this is getting too much for me now. Like, my fears are now becoming a little bit too dominant or regular. And you can feel it in your reactions with people. And a lot of people, I think, a lot of people aren't even aware of why their reactions are there. And then, it's in my programs at the moment, I go through this process. It's like a 33 question process, and it's to uncover a parent's blueprint, right? And we go in, we get these questions, and it's like fire answers, like lightning bolt answers, to just get deep and deeper deep into those unconscious thoughts. And it might, like, one question might be, through my father's eyes, I am blank, right? So it's like lightning bolt answers. Let's see what thoughts are constantly running the show. And until we're aware of those, like, these questions end in tears for these women. And they're like, holy shit. Oh my God, I didn't even know that belief was there, or that thought was there. And I I just think we can't be powerful, empowered beings without knowing that. Otherwise, we're always at the we're always being controlled by an external source. And Goenka talks a lot about that through Vipassana, is that we're not going to be saved by anybody else. Like, we are our own savior. And that's why Vipassana is so worldly accepted, because it just goes off of the law of nature. So what arises to pass away, and it's not got nothing to do with religion, actually. So, and that's why a lot of people flock to it too, because people get a bit icky with religion, right? Cults, you know, they're trying to control me. So I think, yeah, there's not one person I've seen that's become more self-aware and that hasn't benefited, which I reckon you probably see a lot too. So that's the key. And it's painful. It's really painful, but bloody worth it. Bloody worth it.
Yeah. And when you were speaking just now about this process, and I was just making me think about Vipassana, which again I haven't done, but I'd love to do at some point if it feels like the right time. That the power of our presence, like how much when you were speaking, I was just like, oh my gosh, and it's scary to think what would come up, and then you've got to do this and you've got to do that. Like, who do you need to go and speak to, and all these actions. And it's so often, I believe, just the power of being with it, and it dissolves.
So does. It so does. Yeah. And it's so these are some of the cool things that happen during the process, is that you become so in tune with your body that you can actually feel your body changing while you're in meditation. That's how powerful our thought and body like connection is. I remember the first time I was sitting there, this was at the end, probably like day 8 or day 9. And obviously something in my something I ate must have reacted to my belly, or it's just like a concoction of there's so much crap going on. My body is like erupting and it's inflamed, and my belly was very uncomfortable, right? It's making all these noises, it's bloated, it's in pain. And I didn't want these noises to happen. And I remember like going in and focusing in on my belly, like so deep in meditation and connection with my body. And I just kept connecting with it, really like equanimous, right? You know, there's no judgment, but you just start to build that equanimity, they call it, with this sensation. And then after about like 10 seconds, I could feel my body, like just my belly getting smaller and smaller and not as bloated. Like I could just feel the noises were stopping, the discomfort was dissipating, and then it just wasn't there anymore. Like it was gone. And then I remember I started like building a connection to like my heart, like the arteries and the veins in my heart. And you get to, when it's so strange how you can feel the blood coming through and the pumping action happening. And because at that time I was there was a lot of anxiety in my body, and it actually happened probably a week after I came home after that first Vipassana, and there was still that anxious breath in my body, I think because a lot had been happening. But I had this, you know, that big breath where you know, you're in your chest and you just can't get enough air. You know, so many people experience that.
And I definitely relate.
Yeah. And I was like, that's enough. Like I cannot do this anymore. Right. Let's do this. And so it took probably 3 sittings. So 3 hours on 3 separate days to overcome and release my nervous system's need to make that breath. And I remember I was sweating. I was so hot when I wasn't taking the breath, and I was really just connecting in with my heart, and I was connecting in with the arteries, and I was focusing on the sensation, right? Taking away all judgment. And then my brain was slowing the heart down. Like I remember just thinking, seeing the heart, feeling the heart, and just slowing it down. And, you know, in the beginning, you don't get it perfect, but I remember my brain was saying, breathe, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die. Like, take the big breath, take that big breath. And I was like, I'm not going to die. Like, I've been taking a lot of air. I'm actually okay. So I stuck it through. It took me 3 sittings. And then this magical moment just happened where it all just washed away. My body's fear, the body's anxiety, and the body's need to take that big breath left. It just went away. And from that moment, it has not come back. It's come back in little pieces, and then I know what to do with it now, but it no longer scares me. Like the fear around that big breath or that anxious nervous system, it doesn't scare me in the slightest. And I say that now, also acknowledging that in the last 10 days, it did scare me because it was constant. So you're building up again, the fear around it, and then you release it, but you change your relationship with it. And I just remember that magical moment. And that's when I knew, and I felt like the most powerful person in the world. Like when you have that much power and control just with your own body and being able to heal, solve your own problems and fix everything or whatever needs to be fixed, whatever the word that even means. Oh my God, I just felt like a superstar. I felt like Superman. I was like, I am so powerful. I am incredible. Because it had been years that I'd had that breath, right? So this is not just some little thing. It was really big for me. So, this technique is the only one that I would turn to for the rest of my life. And I think we spoke about this a lot, actually. I remember when, you go through years of personal development and you're like in it, you're like, yeah, let's rock, let's do it, let's sign up, let's spend 20K here and 30K here and 50K there and whatever. And as soon as I did Vipassana, I have not signed up to one thing, not one thing. It's been 2 years now. And I think because they empower you to be your own healer, God, goddess, whatever it is. And there's just not that many people out there that actually teach you how to do that legitimately without wanting you to upgrade to their next level program. So that's the coolest thing, right? You can trust it. That's what I love about it too. But yeah, we are so powerful. We are so cool.
Yeah, you can trust it. But what you're saying is you can trust yourself.
Yeah, so much.
Wow, this is so cool. I love it. I'm like, oh my God, do I want to do Vipassana? Am I fucking scared shitless? I think I am.
Everyone I tell is so scared. I don't think there's been one person that has said to me, yeah, all right, let's do it. I'm in. Everyone that I tell is like, oh no, I don't think so. Oh, I know that's too scary. Fuck that. So there hasn't been one person. But honestly, like being in silence for 10 days is the easiest thing of my life. Like actually the act of not talking is really easy for me. But it's the being with your thoughts that is the terrifying thing. But anyway, one equals the other. Yeah.
Deep listening. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast again. Number 2 times. Thanks so much.
2. That's
okay.
Okay.
We'll have to do another one, Into the Nothing baby edition.
Wowzers. Yep. Oh my gosh. Holy shit.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to our beautiful listeners, wherever you're coming from, whatever time. I hope this conversation has supported you in whatever way. To gal pals having a chin wag about going into the nothing, in this case, baby time, and then also, of course, Vipassana. So would you recommend a certain Vipassana place, or what? Is there any, where did you go to? Would you recommend them? If you don't, that's cool.
Oh, so much. Yeah. So I did the Sunshine Coast one at Pomona.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there twice.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's one at the Gold Coast, and I know they're all around Australia. And just so everybody knows, it's donation based. So it's solely based on, going there and just giving what you can,
Mm-hmm.
but they want you to have this power. They want you to have this internal freedom and power without you needing to think about money and all of that jazz. So if you're worried about that aspect, forget about it, throw it out the window. And yeah, you can just Google Vipassana Sunshine Coast or Vipassana New South Wales, and it'll tell you where they are. But they have incredible simple but really comfortable facilities, and yeah, they'll look after you as best they can, but it's all up to you.
Mm-hmm. I'll pop the link I'll pop the link down below if anyone wants to check out that particular center or Vipassana. And of course, I'll also pop the link down to the Happy Home Project, your last set of courses, or set of the course before you have your little munchkin, if anyone wants to be part of that too. And of course, I'll put the link to our previous episode 18, parent-child relationship. So thank you so much, Jess.
Thank you. Love you. This was fun.
Thanks everyone listening.
Thanks
And
everyone.
yeah, bye.
Ciao.